Sin enslaves. We're all addicts. Not all addiction is sin, but all sin is addiction. Now, how do we get out? How are we healed? And unfortunately, there's lots to say about this, and there's not a lot of time. But what's intriguing is, unfortunately, there's not many good examples here, are there? But there's a couple of very important insights. Let me just give you two or three. First of all, God does an intervention, of course. He comes in and says, "You've rejected me." They say, "We're just asking for meat." Right? What do you mean we rejected you? We're asking for meat. But in verse 20, he says, "You have rejected me." Somebody has to come in and tell you, you think this is your problem, but your real problem is this. Somebody's got to wake you up. Somebody's got to slap you around. It's got to happen. You're never going to wake up to it yourself. If somebody right now is coming after you and saying, you think this is your problem, but your real problem is a spiritual one. You think this is your problem, but your real problem is a spiritual one. Your real problem is God is not burning at the center of your life. See, the Bible says if God's not at the center of your life, you're a slave and you don't even know it. And if you don't, there's no bigger slave than the person that doesn't know he or she is a slave. All the 12-step movements know this. The person who says, I have the power, is a powerless person. And the person who says, I am powerless, I need help, is getting power for the first time. Every 12-step person knows that. Apply it spiritually. If you say, I am not terribly lost, I am not horribly wicked, I'm not enslaved to my passions, I'm not powerless to do good, I'm a pretty good person, you are absolutely powerless. You are a terrible slave. You're the worst kind of slave because you don't know you are. On the other hand, the second thing, unfortunately the English translation doesn't bring it out. But if literally, the Hebrew says in chapter 20, you will loathe the meat because you have loathed me. It doesn't just say you've rejected me. That's the way that it's translated, I know. It says you will loathe the meat because you've loathed me. You will lose your appetite for everything else because you have lost your appetite for me. Now here's what I'm trying to tell you. If you're a Christian and you're dealing with enslaving habits, it's not enough to say, bad Christian, stop that. And it's not enough just to beat yourself up. It's not enough to say, I'm going to try harder and harder and harder. Now here's the answer. The real reason that you're having a problem with an enslaving habit is because you don't have an appetite. You're not tasting God. I'm not talking about believing. I'm not talking about even obeying. I'm saying tasting. Tasting. What do you mean? He would say, here's what I mean. I mean the solution, the way to get out from under enslaving habits, the secret to freedom is this. You've got to worship. You've got to have great worship. You've got to have weeping worship. You've got to have glorious worship. You've got to sense the greatness, sometimes be so moved to tears, moved to laughter by what God is, who He is, and what He's done for you. And this has to happen all the time. And you say, well, how does that happen? One of the things that Kathy and I noticed recently is you can't say, I've got a half an hour for my son on Tuesday night, we're going to sit down and have quality time. Can't do it. You can't do it. You can't sit down and say, well, honey, tell me something deep. Pour your heart out to me. Tell me that you're really upset about something and you really have real fears about whether you're going to make it in life, and then I'll put my hands on you and say, honey, you're really going to make it. I'm with you and you're great. And then you'll say, Dad, I just don't know how much. I can't tell you how much this means to me. Tuesday night from 8 to 8:30. People don't work that way. Personal relationships don't work that way. What you have to do is you have to make sure when you're working on your parents, when you're working on your taxes, when you're writing letters, when you're writing the bills, you got to do it out where the kids are. Because you never know when one of them will sit down and say, I'm scared. The only way to get quality time is to have tons and tons of quantity time and wait for the quality time to sort of hiccup up. And that's the way it is with God. You have got to spend time seeking Him. You've got to spend time reading His Word. You've got to spend time in corporate worship. You have to. And if you give Him enough time, if you're seeking Him, if you're reflecting on Him, if you're worshiping Him, if you're praying to Him, of course you're not going to get these incredible times of weeping and glorious worship, but that's the only way you'll ever get them. And that is the only thing that will replace the little fire burning in your heart that says, if only. You need a new fire that says, if only I saw the Lord. If only he was close to my heart. If only I could feel him to be as great as I know him to be. If only I could sense his grace and taste his grace as sweet as I know it to be. If only I had that. And when that's burning in your heart, you're free. Because you say, if I have him, who cares if they snub me? Who cares if I'm not married yet and I'm 35? Who cares? I'm free. I've got this. If that is what, and the only way that burns in your heart is worship. Worship, worship, worship. Appetite. Taste and see the Lord is good.